is what slope-intercept form is. Okay, you're looking at this like, what is this? Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Okay, or it could be like y equals mx minus b. This can be a plus or a minus. It does not matter. Okay? It does not matter. Now, usually the m and the b are going to be numbers. Okay? So you're not going to have like 4 letters up there. Usually the m is going to be a number and the b is going to be a number. Yes?
Does the y-intercept go to the b?
Yes. Yes, the y-intercept is what the b is. So here, I think I messed up. So this is the slope, or like the constant. Remember we talked about the different things. Slope can be constant, direct gradation, slope. This is going to be a number and it's going to be slope. This right here, including that sign in front, whether it's a plus or minus, is going to be the y-intercept. Hot or cold today? Or right on?
So.
Okay. So slope-intercept form. This is what we're going to be talking about from now until the end of the section. Y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. This is called slope-intercept form. Like I said, you're not going to have all 4 letters. This is going to be a number, and this is going to be a number. So I want to go back to, remember what we did a few days ago where we put something in a function machine and we got something else? Remember we did a chart? Remember we got points? Okay. This is a way, I'm going to teach you a way where you don't have to make the chart. Remember, okay, where we did this and we did x and y and we maybe had 2x plus 1. Remember that? Okay. This is in slope-intercept form already. You just didn't know it. And we decided what we were going to put in here, okay, and we got something out. Well, what I'm going to show you today is going to be a way where we don't have to do this, but we can graph it by just looking at this problem. We don't have to say, okay, well, this is a point that's going to go on the graph. This is a point. We're going to be able to look at this, graph it, and then figure out what points could go in here. So it's actually an easier way to graph something like this, okay? All right, so let's talk about it first of all. Here's an example, okay? So notice that I said y equals mx plus b. Notice that the m is 3 over 5. And notice that the b part, so like this was the m, this is the b, is -7. All I want you to do right now is to tell me what's the slope and what's the y-intercept. That's all I want you to do. I don't want you to do anything else. Look at this part right here and tell me what's the slope in this problem and what's the y-intercept. McKenna.
The slope is like the 3 over 5.
Yeah, so this is the slope. Okay, and the y-intercept is what? Yep, y-intercept. Good. You have to know, I'm going to have to know what these are before you correct. Okay, you have to be able to pick them apart and say, okay, my slope there is 3 over 5, my y-intercept is -7. Okay, if I look here, what's my slope and what's my y here, Aiden?
8 is the slope.
Yep, the y-intercept, right? Whenever I have a whole number, what can go underneath it? A 1. So every time you have a whole number, a 1 needs to go underneath it. Just think of slope. It's always like up and over. Remember how we talked about slope, up and over? So we have to have 2 numbers there to know what we're going over. So anytime you have a whole number, make sure 1 goes underneath. So my slope would be 8 over 1, and my y-intercept is 6. Okay? So far, so good? All right, let's try this one. Y equals x plus 1. What's my slope here? What's my slope here? Aiden? It is going to be 1. Remember I said you can always put a 1 with a lonely variable? So 1 is my slope, 1 over 1. Okay, because I can put, and then what's my y-intercept? See this one. Okay, try this one. What is my slope here and my intercept here? What's my slope? Brooklyn? Over 3 over 1 is my slope. What's my y-intercept here? 0. Okay, so some of you need to start writing some examples in your notebook down because I don't see anybody moving at that time. So because these are going to show up and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I don't remember, what is the y-intercept here? Is it 1? Is it 0? What is it? So some of you need to start writing some of these things down, especially ones like this. Y equals x plus 3. Your slope for this one would be 1 over 1, and your y-intercept would be 3. Okay, especially if there's nothing with that x. That 1 is going to go with that x to make your slope. My y-intercept would be 3. Another one I want to make sure you have written down in your notebook is one like this. Okay, my slope is 4 over 1, and my y would be 0. So make sure you have some of this in your notebook. The other one that's always tricky for students is one like this. One that is always tricky is y equals x. What's my slope for this one? 1 over 1. What's my y-intercept? 0. That one is the trickiest one all the time. So my slope here is 1 over 1, and my y-intercept is 0. So make sure you have some of these written down because they're going to show up today. Yeah. Sure. No problem. To what? What would you like me to go to?
That green one.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so can you pick apart what's what? Whatever's with the x is always the slope. Whatever's behind that x, whatever it is, a 0, a -5, a 10, whatever, that's your y-intercept. Okay? What questions do you have so far? Anything? Okay, can I go ahead? All right, so how are we going to use this? How are we going to use this? How are we going to use this to graph things? Okay? So if you want to watch first, you can watch first. If you want to do it with me on a piece of your graph paper, you can do it with me on a piece of your graph paper. I don't care. This is what I'm going to graph right here. And I'm going to just make some numbers on my graph there. Okay. Actually, I should go to 7. Okay. Alright, there we go. Okay, so the first thing I have to do is I have to determine what's my slope in here and what's my y-intercept. So what's my slope? McKenna? Okay, here's my slope. My y-intercept is -7. Alright, so this is what I'm going to do. First thing, I'm going to plot my y-intercept on the y-axis. Okay? So I'm going to plot my, if you remember the x, this is the x, this is the y. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plot my y-intercept on the y-axis. So I have -7. So I'm just going to put a dot on -7, which is down here. There's -7, plotting my y. The reason why it's called the y-intercept is because that's where our line is going to go through the y-axis. Y-intercept, that's what's going to intercept that y-axis. That's why it's called that. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my slope, and I'm going to plot, starting with the point, starting with the y-intercept. Okay, so what does this mean? What does the slope mean? I'm going to do what, and then what? What is it telling me I'm going to do? Yeah.
3 over 5.
I know, other way around. Up 3 over 5. Okay, because this one's always going up, and this one's always going over. So starting with this dot right here, I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, over 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to plot my next dot. Okay, and then I'm going to do it again from that dot. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, over 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my next dot. And then you can connect that tape.
So how can we do it twice?
Remember when we did our tables and asked for 4 points on a graph? Well, we're making our 3 or 4 points in a graph. That's what we're doing it so many times because it's a point. If I would make my table and I put this in there, 3/5 x plus, or let me make it a little bigger here. If I would make my table and I put this in, 3/5 x minus 7, and I pick some points here. Let's say 0, 7, 0, -7 would be a point. My next point would be 5, negative, what is that, 5, -4. That'd be a point on in my table. My next point could be, what is it, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, -1 would be in my table. It's just, and it's what it's doing is finding easy ones that cross the axis perfectly. You're not always going to have, if I would pick like -1, this isn't going to turn out very well. It's going to be like a fraction, right? They're finding things that work perfectly, that land perfectly on those points. So it's like me coming up with my own points, only I'm just doing it off my graph. I'm not making a table, I'm not doing any work in the table. It's way easier than that. Okay? All right, so let's try another one. All right, so let's graph this one. So it can be y equals 2x minus 4. So I should probably put numbers on here. I wish it would come with numbers on it, so I don't have to do whatever. All right. Okay. So, first of all, I gotta find my slope and I gotta find my y-intercept. What's my slope in this one? What's my slope? Highlight. 2 over, not with, it's number 2x. What's that number with that x? So my slope is 2 over 1. Okay. What's my y-intercept this time? Anybody know? Yep, -4. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to graph that y-intercept. Do I need to wait a sec? You guys want me to wait a second? You can put numbers and stuff on your graphs and you're working. I'll wait a second if you want me to. Let me know when you're ready. Let me know when you're ready. All right, can I get started? Yes? Ready? All right, so what am I going to graph first up here? What's the first thing I'm going to graph, Kate? -4. I'm going to find where -4 is on my y. Guess what? Here it is. Your y-intercept is always going to be plotted on this line. That's the first thing. It's always going to be plotted there, because that's where your line is going to cross the y-axis. All right, now what? Now what am I going to do? Yeah? Okay, so this is telling me I'm going to go up 2 over 1. From this dot, I'm going to go up 2, 1, 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. Connect your dots. Pretend that's connecting. And that's it. That's how you graph it. That's way easier than making your table. Because if we made our table, this is what would have happened. 2x minus 4. You have your x and your y, and you say, okay, I'm going to put in 0, 1, 2, 3. And then instead of doing that, I can say, okay, well, I know it's going to be -0, -4. 1 would have been 1, -2. 2 would have been 2, 0. And 3 would have been 3, 2. It's already doing your points, you don't have to do any more. So it's kind of select that way. What questions do you guys have for me so far? Do you think it's easier than making the table? Yeah, it's way easier than making the table. 100%. You don't have to sit there and do the work and then graph it. You're literally skipping the table. You're looking at the problem and then graphing. You're skipping the middle step. Can I go to the next one? No? Me to say yeah? Okay. Let me know when you're ready. Good to go? Yeah. Okay. Let's do one. No, I'm going to do one more. And I'm going to do it on this graph. I'm going to do one that has a negative slope, because sometimes that happens. A negative slope. All right. Okay, so let's graph this one. Y equals -3x plus 1. Let's graph negative 3x plus 1. So, all right, so my slope, what's the slope on this one? Okay, yeah. Hold on, let's just talk about this. What's the slope? Okay, the x is never included in your slope, it's just the number, right? Like negative 3 over 1. What's my y-intercept? Plus 1, right? Okay, here's my y, so this is the first thing I'm going to graph. Here it is right here. Now, what do you know about a negative slope? What do you know about it? Positive slope, all the lines go like this. What do you think a negative slope is going to look like? All the lines are going to go like this. So anytime you have a negative slope, the line is going to look like this. Positive slope is always going to go up to the right. Okay? So our line is going to go like this. So here's how it has to work. You're still going to go up 3, but guess which way you're going to go over 1? This way. Because that's going to make my line go down like this. Does that make sense to everybody? So you have to think kind of ahead. What do you need your line to look like? Does it need to go up like this or down like this? And in this case, since our slope is negative, it has to go like this. So up 3 over 1, up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. Is that right? What I did 2 here. What am I doing? My bad. This will be 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. That's how it should look. Just like that. Okay, does everybody have any questions on the negative slope? So you have to be looking ahead. Okay, if I have a negative slope, my line needs to go down like this. If I have a positive slope, my line needs to go up like this. You always go up first, but this bottom one is going to determine which way you go if you have a positive or negative slope. Okay, any questions so far? Can you graph one for me by yourself quick? I don't even care if you sketch it. It doesn't have to be on graph paper, just sketch it. This is what I want you to graph for me. See if you can do this one. You just graph this. You just graph this. Think of what your y-intercept is. Think of what your slope is. What should your graph look like? Write your slope. Figure out what your slope is. If you need to write it out for yourself. Figure what your y is. Remember, if we don't have a y, think about what we talked about. Think about what it looks like. Think about what your y is. What is the y in this one? And what is it? 0, right? Okay. So think about if you want to put plus and 0 at the end to help stop out, you can do that. You don't have to if you don't want to. But where would that be plotted on here then? Where is that going to be plotted? Yeah. Right in the middle, because that's where 0 is, right? There's our first y-intercept. I'll make it different colors so you can see it. Okay, now what? How am I going to know where my next dot is? What am I going to do next? Somebody I haven't heard from today, somebody that's sitting there but knows what's going on, tell me where my next dot is. What am I going to do next? How do I know? Kate?
Go up 2 over 1.
Yep, 2 over 1 is my slope. Up 2, over 1, up 2, over 1, up 2, over 1. You can go backwards if you want to. But this is what your line should look like. Just like that. Good job. Now sometimes remember it might be like 3 over 4 might be your slope, up 3 over 4. It just depends on what's going on there. They might add the 2 numbers for you already. If it's a full number, they're not going to. Okay. How are we doing? So far, so good? Okay, so far, so good? All right, there's one more thing I need to show you today, and then I'm done. That's it. So in your notebook, this is what I want you to write. What if the equation isn't in y equals mx plus b form? Because that's going to happen to you, and I want to make sure you have underneath how to figure out how to put it into y equals mx plus b form. What if the equation isn't in y equals mx plus b form? Because that's going to happen. I think it happens at 2 in your homework. And it's going to happen from now on in the next lesson and in the next lesson. So we have to make sure we know what to do. All right, so this is what the problem showed up like. And I want you to graph that. Well, it's not in the right format. Some of you are probably like, well, I know, I'm pretty sure 5 is slow because it's with x, and I'm pretty sure 3 is y-intercept, but that's not always the truth. Okay? So our job is to make it in y equals mx plus b form. So y is already by itself. That's a good thing. But what about that 5x? What should technically be together in that problem? What 2 parts of that need to be together on the side, Aiden? 5x and 3. But I think we need to go back to our last chapter. What can we do? We need to get y by itself over here. What do I need to do to take away that 5x? What do I have to do? Not divide by 5. We're going to move that whole thing. We're not going to divide anything again. We're going to subtract it. Remember when we need to subtract to get rid of something on one side? Remember that? When we did that? And what do we have to do to the other side? Subtract it from the other side. So this is what it would look like. We're going to minus 5x from this side. But if I do it from this side, I got to do it on the other side. I don't have anything I can really subtract with there. So this is what your problem looks like now. It looks like, okay, that's gone. Y equals, and then whatever else I have left over here. You can write it any way you want. You can write it 3 minus 5x. You can write it like this. You can write it minus 5x plus 3. Either way, it doesn't matter. Because what I just did is I just put these 2 things together, and then you can really put them in any order you wanted to. If you want to see the x first, you can do that. So is the slope 5? What is the slope? Negative 5. Negative 5 is the slope. Now you could solve, or now you could go ahead and graph it. But the hardest part is putting it in that y equals mx plus b form. That's tricky. That's really tricky. And I'll do another one if you want to see another one. Actually, I'll probably do a few more because this is probably the trickiest part of today. I don't want to do that one again. Let's do one like this. Okay. Here's our next one. We want it in y equals mx plus b form. We know the x and the 2x and the 9 got to be together on the side, but we have to move some things around. So think about what you need to do. Get rid of that 2x on that side. I'm not going to divide it yet. I don't want to know what this x is. I just want to move that thing. So what should I be doing? What should I be doing? I'm going to subtract it, right? Okay, so let's minus it. Minus 2x. What's it going to look like on the other side? Something like this. Can't really do anything. So you can write it like this. Or you could write it like this. Either one. Do you see how they're the same? Do you guys see how they're the same? Either one. Now you could graph it. Now you could graph it. Okay. Okay, what about this one? What am I going to do this to? Y minus 3x equals negative 4. Rick, what do you think? I'm going to add 3x. I'm going to do exactly the opposite, like we've always done. Add 3x. Guess what? On the other side, I'm going to add 3x. So this is what it's going to look like. Y equals, and if you want to make it so the x is first, you can do that. 3x minus 4. Exactly. For,
Our homework, do we have to graph that?
probably. I think there's 2 in here that you have to change and then graph. I'm pretty sure. Let me check and make sure there's nothing else goofy before I stop. We'll stop there for today. That's all I have. Okay? All I have. What you need today, you have to have graphic homework. You have to. I think there's how many you have to graph. What do I have? 15, 10 through 25. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to graph. So if you want to make any of the, you can take from the free ones that are already done. That's fine. But there's 6 to graph. And then I want you to do 24A. No. 24B. 25B. So 24B and 25.